Roleplaying, and welcome to the St. Pete by Night Twitch channel where we play St. Petersburg by Night, a massive multiplayer 5th edition World of Darkness chronicle set in the city of St. Petersburg, Florida. My name is Kent, also known as Misha Kent on all social media, but that is the most worthless follow you are ever going to have unless you like really dated, out-of-date content from over a year ago. I might start posting there again eventually if I get a wild hair up my ass, but that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. What you should do instead is go follow St. Pete by Night on all social media because, we've got a lot of content there for you to absorb and enjoy. This is Saturday night, however, which means it's time for After Dark. We're not going to be playing Vampire the Masquerade. We're not going to be playing any World of Darkness. Instead, we're going to be talking about the World of Darkness at great length. As here on After Dark, we talk to storytellers, we talk to players, we talk to community members, we talk to movers and shakers within the World of Darkness. And by my own personal opinion, we have a fantastic guest tonight, and that guest is Allie, aka a Fangless Fox, who is a TikTok creator, a content creator, and a dice maker. You may know her from Ember Fox Dice, a great creator of dice. And we're going to talk a bit about the dice stuff, but mostly we're just going to talk about everything and anything under the sun because I have known Allie for a couple of years now. We've had a wonderful friendship, and this place wouldn't be the same without it, for me, at least personally. But let's go ahead and let Allie introduce herself. Hello, Allie.
Hey. So, yep, I'm Fangless Fox anywhere you guys are allowed to find me. Um, but I am, as Kent said, the maker of dice, Ember Fox.
Yes. And we're going to talk about that, but I also want to talk about this crazy World of Darkness journey we've been on, as well as your overall TTRPG journey, because I always think that it's interesting to hear the origin story, kind of like superheroes, of like how people discovered this crazy obsessive hobby and how someone like yourself is able to turn it into a profession, to turn it into something that you've found so much love for and interest in that you've gone even a step further and really invested in it and made it a part of your life to that degree. But let's go back to the very beginning. How did you first discover TTRPGs, and did you have any preconceived notions about them before you jumped in, like any biases or any kind of like, well, that's for nerds or anything like that? How did your journey begin?
Actually, no, I didn't really have any notions like that. I didn't really know anything about them. I actually got into them through Matt, or a Fangless Wolf. Uh, he started playing while we were still in Fort Lewis,
Okay.
and we would host. So I would always watch, but I never played. I think it was maybe halfway through their campaign is when I decided, yeah, no, sure, I'll give it a try. And it was Pathfinder.
Okay. That's
So,
a really like intense lesson right out the gate. It's not one of the more simple games. It's very crunchy, very mechanics heavy, but also a really good kind of introduction because then you
mhm.
can find simpler or more streamlined games and be like, oh, okay, there is role play to be had, and it's not just all dice rolling. Um,
Yeah.
what was it like observing those first few sessions though? Like what was it about TTRPGs or about the experience that hooked you in, or were you kind of dragged in kicking and screaming at first?
I wouldn't say kicking and screaming. I was definitely encouraged to play because I was watching and just asking questions like, what is this? Or like, why can this happen when, you know, things like that. Um,
See, we've got Matt in the chat right now, so he's
yeah.
gonna actually fact check you on anything you say. So, just full disclosure, you might as well just admit it. They were begging you to play. But what was your first character like? What do you remember about that first
Oh,
experience? What did you make? What did you play? What was the story like?
I believe my very first character was a death mage.
You're gonna have to educate me on that one because I've never gone into Pathfinder. I know nothing about it other than it's 3.5 with extra steps. Uh, so
It
what is a
is
death
fun.
mage?
Pretty much the way I played it was a very like intense necromancer because apparently that's what I mean. If you know me, you know. Um, so like full on robe, scythe, all that.
Oh, you
I'm
went
just
like Grim Reaper to the
oh,
nth degree.
absolutely.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Now I know you're an avid book reader. That's something that
Yep.
like anybody who knows anything about you, you absolutely adore reading. So do you find yourself drawn to things like fantasy and horror and those kind of genres, or do you prefer more like nonfiction material?
Um, normally I am mostly drawn to fantasy, dark fantasy, things like that. I'll read anything within
Okay.
reason.
Okay. Did you think it was much of a leap to go from kind of observing other people's adventures like you do when you read books to kind of participating in your own? I mean, I know that I consider you a bit of an introvert. You like, you like to kind
Just
of
a little bit.
keep it all in the safe space. So TTRPGs are a very extroverted activity.
Mhm.
Was that a big leap for you, or did you find it kind of a comfortable transition between the two? Because you have a crazy amount of books. I had the privilege and honor of seeing at least a portion of your collection,
Yep.
and it was a lot. So you have a lot to draw from, a lot of inspiration.
Yeah.
Was it difficult to kind of make that transition and bring that inspiration out and kind of create your own character, or was it, pretty seamless and easy for you?
It was actually relatively easy.
Okay. Okay.
Coming up to the backstory, so that's a different story. But
Yeah, it's
um,
easy. It's a lot easier to read than it is to write because you don't want it to
yeah,
be an exact copy of something you've read before. But also, like writing, just in general, is such a I'm
fun thing to do.
overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed by the people who are able to do it. My ADHD will not let me sit still for long enough to put a story together. But if it's something where I'm like interactive, I'm very
Hmm.
extroverted as opposed to the introverted. So I need other
Yep.
people to fuel my creative process. Otherwise, I just get bored and go play video games or something else instead. Um,
Fair.
what do you think are some of the biggest creative influences that you draw from when you are coming up with a character or when you are getting into the creative process? Like what do you pick from the most?
Um, I would say usually it's something about myself, and I draw about from that most of the time. For some reason, I don't have an answer why, but it's my heritage.
Okay. So
Like
yeah,
with
go ahead.
sorry,
No.
but with Aurora, Irish. Um, so
And phlebotomy. I know that
yep.
you also are a trained phlebotomist, and so having that
Yep.
element in your character as well. It seemed like you did project a lot of yourself into that character, but you also, I felt like that character really evolved over the time period of the prevamp, like over those
She
few
did.
years. She started off a lot more reserved and then kind of got thrust into leadership because of heritage, and there
Yep.
was a lot of pressure put on her, and I felt like a lot of that struggle was very subtle, but if you were looking for it you could see kind of the difficulties she was going through, and it made, from my perspective, a very interesting experience to watch because it was subtle as opposed to some of the other characters that were a lot more out there. But if you know how to
Hmm.
read an introvert, you could see that transition over time that she was going through. What was one of your favorite parts about playing the Aurora character, or at least give people who never got the opportunity to meet her kind of a
Oh.
overview or a synopsis of the Aurora character?
Um, I did purposely make her to be more introverted, more quiet, more of a wallflower because I wasn't originally going to make her a Toreador. I was going to make her a Tremere.
Really?
Yes. She was originally going to be a Tremere, but then I was asked to be in Toreador. So I'm like, okay, first time playing the game, why not? Sure, I'll go with, the help. Any help that I can get, really, I will go with that. I didn't know she was the prince's grandchild.
Not at first, not when you made her, no.
No, I had no clue. I was talking to Tyler, who is the player of Charles, and hey, you've done this before. Would you mind being Aurora's sire? And we worked up things for backstory and whatnot, and it went relatively smoothly. Yeah, no, I had no clue until that very first Elysium.
Well, and you've really embraced, pun intended, the world of darkness ever since then. But how did you first discover the world of darkness? How did you first hear about it, or how did it kind of enter into your lexicon? Because it's been an interesting journey for sure, and now it's been almost 3 years that you've been, involved with or immersed in this. But when did your journey first begin?
You actually.
Well, I knew that, but yes. But what was it about it, or the way I sold it? And I'm not looking for praise here because I know I pressured a lot of people into doing it. But what was it about this particular system or setting or game that appealed to you most, that you wanted to try it? I give a good
Um,
sales pitch, but there must have been something that
you
you
do.
liked.
Yes, you do. You do. I've always been one ever since I was a little kid for vampires. So that immediately drew me. The amount of people terrified me. Absolutely
Dude.
terrified me.
It was a big experiment. I mean, I
It
did
really
not
was.
expect to get the interest and response that I got. And I think after a certain point in time, I went into a state of shock and was just like, yeah, sure, let's throw more in there. What's the worst that could happen? I mean, this is already
Right.
an overwhelming amount. So we had, I think, 250 ish people interested at
Something like
first.
that.
And our first
Yeah.
event was 90 plus people, I want to say, that finally made it through the first round. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, so it was very interesting. What games had you played prior to that? You said you started with Pathfinder, but what were
Yep.
some of the other TTRPGs that you had
Just
fiddled with?
Pathfinder and D&D 5e. That was it.
Okay, and how long had you been playing prior to the start of St. Pete?
Um, I believe it was 4 years.
4 years. Okay, so
Yeah,
you
so I
you've
didn't
been
have
doing
a
it for a
lot of
while.
relatively, but more people had a lot more experience than I did.
A lot of people discovered TTRPGs during the pandemic, though, and it seems like you
Mm,
had already been doing it at least for a little bit before the
yeah.
pandemic hit. What brought you to TikTok? Because one of the things that I admire about you most is that you're really good at creating engaging content on TikTok. Your cosplays are fantastic.
Oh,
You
thanks.
choose really good sounds, and you give what we in the theater business call really good face. You're really expressive, and for an introvert, that's got to be a huge challenge. But you really do emphatically emote.
Hmm.
So what was it about TikTok that kind of drew you into that community and made you decide to create content and start posting stuff? That's not something I'd expect. Having known you now for a while, that seems like it'd be a big leap.
Actually, I discovered it through an ad. I think it was on Facebook or something, um, by a TikToker named Ishness.
Okay, never heard of them.
They're a scare actor.
Okay,
But that's what brought me to TikTok. I wanted to see more of their content. Um, and it's actually a comfortable place for me. Um, Making the content. I actually try not to emote, but that doesn't happen.
You're so good at it. Like you really do. You express and everything feels purposeful and meaningful and I feel like you embody a character very very well. Do you have any kind of theatrical background or making movies or no, like
Nope.
it's just a raw natural talent that you have for it. What is your process like in content creation? You know, everyone has their own spin on things. You get these really great sounds. You put together really great videos. I saw your shooting setup back at Fort Campbell.
Yeah.
What's that whole process like for you?
Um, Really, I just try to get in the headspace of the character. Um, like Aurora, Clarice, now Adelaide. I haven't put anything out for Adelaide yet. Yet.
Want to see it? It's a Malkavian. That's a stretch for you. I
Yeah,
do want to see that.
it is a stretch for me. But I hope to do her justice. But it's more so I find a sound that resonates with the character, and I just let that character take over. I don't know if that makes sense, but it does to me.
No, it does. It does. You let it really inhabit you, and you can see it in your performances. Again, knowing you like I do, having been on this journey that we've been on together, I've definitely seen an evolution because you were making content for like Near Lynn and for D and
Mhm.
D prior to the shift over to World of Darkness, which
Yep,
has dominated a good majority of your content
it
since.
has. Yeah.
But what was kind of what really called to you about the World of Darkness specifically? Because it is kind of a departure from traditional vampire myths. They incorporate
It
a lot of that, but
is.
there's a lot more to it, and they really get a very unique and grounded approach to the vampire mythos. But what was it about that that made you want to take it that extra step and start creating content for TikTok for Vampire the Masquerade, especially since it could be a very overwhelming environment at times? What
Yeah.
inspired you behind all of that?
I just really wanted to portray the character. Like, I wanted to show her off. Like, hey, this is something I created.
Yeah, and I think you did a marvelous job with that. And honestly, again, the character grew, and I could see you over time. Like it was, you had a really good concept from the get go. I really thought it was a good introductory concept because this well is very very deep,
Mhm.
especially with the massive amount of lore. But I found you taking to the material pretty quickly, wanting to learn about the bloodlines and the ancestry and kind of
Yep.
the lore behind it all. And despite the fact having that surprise, you're related to the prince, and you know it's you're a lot
Yeah.
more ingrained in the city than you think you are. I felt like you did really take to it and want to dig deeper. Was that like more of an intellectual because you read a lot of books because you enjoy that kind of stuff, or was there something else behind it?
I did want to understand more about the bloodline. But yeah, I like finding out things about the character that even I didn't know. And then growing upon that. So it is, I would say, yeah, it was an intellectual move. Words are difficult. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for sure. Describe that first game experience when we actually had our first Elysium, the first get together. What was that like for you? Because again, a lot more people showed up than I expected. It did
Hmm.
become this big, crazy thing. I mean, it was a lot more like a LARP than it was a tabletop game. It was a very
Yeah.
non traditional style of play at first. And I'm assuming you hadn't had any LARP experience or anything
Nope.
like that before that. So what were you feeling going into it, and what was it that kept you from immediately running for the hills, which I would have totally understood after that first experience?
I definitely wanted to. It was a lot, but like I made her as a quiet character, so I could learn. Um, but I would say the most interesting would be Adriana.
Okay.
That first um, everyone look at me moment.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. That was something, and I was in awe. Like that's something I could never do.
Yeah. And it's funny how dice can play a part in something like that. Uh,
Hmm.
and it adds that random X factor. Is there a particular part of the Vampire the Masquerade or World of Darkness mechanics that appeal to you? Because it is very different, especially coming from a D&D or a Pathfinder background. It's a very different system, and it's a lot to adjust to and get used to. Is there anything about the World of Darkness system that appeals to you specifically or that you enjoy as opposed to a Pathfinder or a D&D?
I actually really like the hunger and the beast part of it.
Okay.
Because that can, make or break a situation for you.
Yeah. It really does have, it throws a lot of chaos into the mix. I mean, you always had your nat 1 or your nat 20 in older systems, but obviously the odds of getting that were a lot smaller
Yeah.
in D&D and Pathfinder, whereas with with Vampire, it's a growing threat the further and further
Hmm.
you get into the system. Uh,
Yeah.
so you had a unique experience too in being one of the only OG characters, and it's a small amount. I mean, I think there was only a dozen or so characters that made it from
Yeah.
start to finish, but you got to watch and be a part of that first full story, that entire arc that was the prevamp. What did you enjoy about it? Was there anything that you wish you'd had more time to do or could have done differently during that process? And what's kind of the takeaway you take from the prevamp of St. Pete by Night?
Um, I liked most of it. I tried not to get involved like in depth with most of the plot because she wasn't made for that. Like the ghosts and things like that. Um, but something I would have liked to have more time with was her stalker.
Yes. Yeah, I remember. I remember
Yep.
that was an interesting storyline that we really did do our best to try and flesh out near the end, but it was one of
Hmm.
those things that there were too many people and too few people running the game. Something that we have
Yeah.
thankfully resolved since then. But
Yes.
obviously, you enjoyed it. You were
Oh,
inspired by it because you've gone
absolutely.
on to play other characters. You're obviously still involved. You
Mhm.
participated in other games. What so far out of your experience has been your favorite moment in World of Darkness? Not even in St. Pete specifically, but just in World of Darkness as a whole. Have you had a moment that just really sticks with you and stands out?
That's actually difficult. Yes, but it's probably not a moment that you would expect.
Okay.
When she tasted Nira's blood.
Okay. Interesting. What was it about that that really stood out for you?
Just the learning the difference between, Toreador and Tremere and the things that are different in their blood. Um, and then within the same scene, just him offering to adopt her. It was a very interesting and odd scene,
Yeah.
but it was very fun.
Yeah. Okay.
Just testing the blood and things like that.
Now, you have taken this crazy World of Darkness story and experience and have expanded upon it further, indulging in various other trades, other talents that you have, to the point that maybe a lot of the viewers don't know. You are a huge part in our podcasts and the production
Yep,
of our podcasts and putting those out. Talk about that background because you went to school for
I
that kind of
did.
stuff and that was basically your goal was to head down that path.
Hmm.
And we're very lucky to have you, and I'm very grateful for your talents. But what is it about audio editing and mixing that you really enjoy? What is it about that part of the creative process?
So I did go to school for digital multimedia. I have an associate's in it. It's not a big degree, but it's something. Um, but I actually was awful in it in school.
Really?
Yeah. It wasn't as bad as working with Flash. I hate Flash. Hated it. Um, but I I could never get them in on time, like, because I had these big ambitions and plans of what I wanted in specific audio, and I just couldn't get it all to, mix how I wanted. I couldn't get the right tone, I couldn't drop it, the right amount. The voiceovers, there were sometimes that I would lose files in school, not, any fault of, the teachers or anything like that. It was just equipment decided, "No."
It just wasn't working with you. It was you
Yep.
had the Lasombra Bane before you even knew you had the Lasombra
Yeah.
Bane. Uh, but you've really taken to it very well. And again, your focus, your ability to be productive and get things done. I mean, I put mammoth tasks on you. I'll dump 15 episodes on you at a time, and you'll have them put together and done for me within just a couple of days. Do
Yeah,
you enjoy activities like that that allow you to really just zone
I
in and hyper
do.
focus? Are you like a grinder like I am, where you just want to get into it and you can
Yeah.
churn out that kind of content? And has it helped you in things like TikTok creation and other ways in your life?
Um, I wouldn't say it helped me in TikTok. I don't really use it. I'm one of the few that don't use CapCut or anything like that.
So you do it just raw,
Yeah.
just straight up TikTok. What? But it
Yep.
comes off with really incredible quality. I mean, you absolutely have an eye for artistic shots, cuts, editing, that kind of stuff. Even if you are only using the TikTok program, which is incredible to me, because your lip syncing abilities, like everything that you do in the creation of your TikToks, is so. It feels so professional. It feels so high quality and
Appreciate
high
that.
class. So you obviously have an artistic eye for it. And speaking of your artistic eye, you have taken this crazy hobby that we participate in, which is TTRPGs, and have made a new trade and learned a new skill, which is dice making. And I'm going to transition here to promoting your business, Ember Fox Dice, which can be found at foxdice.bigcartel.com. What about the dice making profession appealed to you most? Because it's not a cheap thing to get into. There's a
It is
lot of
not.
investment. What about that process really called to you and appealed to you? What made you even think that it was something you wanted to try your hand at?
Well, I have an out of print die. Um, I couldn't find it anywhere at the time. I just thought it was really cool. I didn't know anything about, out of print or collectibles or anything like that. And I wanted to find the rest of the set. Turns out they didn't make a set, it was just a standalone D20. Um, but I was just like, okay, well, if I can't find it, I want to learn how to make it because I couldn't find anyone that made anything similar. And I looked.
Yeah,
Um, and there's also a Chessex set called Masquerade, ironically. It's a dark blue and gold Gemini mix, which is also out of print. Um, and it took forever for me to actually get a full set of that because I have D10s in it, um, but I wanted an actual uh, polyhedral set because at
right.
the time I wasn't playing VTM. I knew nothing about it. So I wanted it for a specific character She was a magus, a
Okay.
dual wielding magus. Um, but it's really just a gorgeous color mix, and in some places it turns green. So I wanted to recreate that for both of those, for that
Right.
standalone and that set. Um, so that's originally how I got into it.
So you basically had a die that you wanted a full set for. You couldn't find it searching high and low. And I know you do your due diligence and research and looking for something. You don't strike me as the type of
Yeah.
person who, checks Google once and is like, well, if it's not there, that's it. You
Oh,
will like pursue and go down various avenues and various methods to try and find it. So you were just like, if I can't find it, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna get into
yeah.
this and give it a shot and make it. Do you have any kind of other artistic background, or was this like really your first time pursuing something of, because this is not a small feat. Like
It's
it's a huge thing to get into just to complete a set of dice. Did like what Do you have a background at all in any kind of art before this?
no,
No, this is
not at all.
that's it blows me away. Like what a jump, what a leap, what
Hmm.
a courageous and bold and expensive endeavor to attempt
Yeah.
to go into. So when you decided, okay, I want to do this, what were your first steps? Like how did you learn and get in, like how did you pursue this? I'm just absolutely mystified.
At the time, I didn't know how in depth or expensive it was. My very first sets, I still have them, are riddled with just bubbles because I'm experimenting.
Right.
I'm curious. Um, and it took a lot to get to the point where I am now. And I'm still making improvements. Like I sand everything, sand and polish all of them, every single one by hand, and it's it's a lot.
It seems like it would be so tedious. Like I've talked to other dice makers and hearing about it, like that's one of their least favorite parts about the process because it can make their hands really sore. It can be just like a constant. How do you stay engaged with that when there are all these other distractions in the world, when it's the most, ADHD culture we've ever had, where there's bright flashing lights and other things that can draw your attention?
Mhm.
How are you able to focus in on the minutia of the process of like sanding or anything like that? What do you do to keep your mind busy?
Um, I will have something playing in the background, like some random show, just for background noise. But I don't know if anyone else does this. I'm sure they do, but they don't like actively talk about it. I will count up to like 8 or 10 and then switch faces and do the same thing.
Right.
But I also think about the character of the person they're going to.
Okay. Do you do a lot of kind of research into, do you talk to your clients or do you talk to your customers about their characters to try and kind of get a feel for that stuff, or do they just give you a basic generic kind of description and you do the best you can with what you get?
Sometimes, not all the time, because most of the time I already know the person and I know what their characters are like.
True, you tend to work with people that you've interacted with or have had a hand in the creation of their characters or the playing
Mhm.
of the game so far, so you do have that understanding. What kind of personal touches do you try to put into the dice that you make? Because it is a very competitive field. I mean, we
It
have at
is.
least 3 or 4 dice makers on the server alone, let alone all the others out there.
Yeah.
What do you do that really sets you apart from others? What kind of personal touches do you put into it?
Um, so I will ask if they want shiny or matte, because I'll do both.
Mm-hmm.
And I leave it up to them mostly. I will send them photos like, hey, do you like this? Do you want me to report it? Um, I'll I go in depth, like how exactly do you want these dice? Because I want them to be perfect. I
Right.
want them to be loved and used. I don't want them to sit on a shelf and just collect dust. Because I know how I am, and I have a very large collection of dice that I just don't use.
Right.
They are there to look pretty, and that's about it.
Right. Yeah, I
Uh,
I had the opportunity of having some of your dice in my hand briefly. Unfortunately, I had to give them away, and I regret to this very day having given them away because there was obviously a great deal of care and quality put into them, and the coloration, the inking, everything about them obviously showed the level of detail you put into it and the care and consideration you put into it. And I find the whole thing amazing. I do not have the steady hand for this. I do not have the kind of focus it requires. But take me through as best as you can the process of creating a set of dice for you from beginning to end, all the way through, if you can,
yeah.
as in layman's terms as possible for those of us who don't understand the inner talk, the speak of it. But yeah, break it down for me.
I will try my best.
Yeah, absolutely.
So usually I will ask because I do two different types of blood dye, either clear with crimson or white with crimson.
Okay.
Um, and it seems to be like a 50-50 split of who wants what. But I will start there and we'll talk about the design, what they expect, what they like don't want. If they give me creative freedom, I will like ask, okay, what colors don't you like so I can avoid those? Um, but I'll start off with whatever color they want. Some of them are difficult, but I have found out that I am relatively good at color matching, which is odd because I never thought I would be.
Yeah, you have a very artistic eye for sure. Absolutely.
um, but I'll pour the dice. That actually doesn't take that long.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It's the waiting. The waiting is what kills me.
So
Uh,
the actual process of making the dice isn't nearly as time intensive as it is just letting them cook, letting them do their thing.
mhm. And
Like,
then sanding and polishing.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
I
that'll take me a week alone, easy. If I rush it, I can do it in 3 days,
okay.
but that's really taxing on my hands.
What is your favorite set of dice you've made so far?
Um, I would have to say Coles.
Okay. Which ones specifically, and describe them as best as you can. Unfortunately, I don't have a photo to show.
They are a bicolored set that's UV reactive, so the pink is very bright under black light.
Okay.
And when I rolled them, because I always test roll, like, are these gonna be nice or not? Because we all have that one set that we love, but it rolls atrociously.
Right.
Hers were rolling great,
Do
and
you?
from hmm,
Oh no, go ahead.
sorry,
No, you're fine.
from what I hear, they still do.
Good for her, bad for her players, but absolutely good for her. For those who don't know, Cole is one of our
50-50.
STs on the server. She runs Hunter the Reckoning, and yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. Were you a big dice collector or fan before getting into it? Were you what they call a dice goblin that would collect dice, or was it just a part of it all for you?
I actually collected a lot before I started to make them.
What is your favorite set of dice, and describe them as best as you can?
Oh, that's difficult.
Yeah, I want to know what was your favorite set before you started making? Because I'm sure you probably have a favorite set that you've made, but of the ones that
Yep.
you collected beforehand, what was your favorite?
Um, it's also a standalone die. There's no set, unfortunately, but I would have to say the Chessex Mother of Pearl.
Okay.
It's kind of like a dirty pour in a way. Not in a way. It is a dirty pour. but with flashes of blue, purple, pearl white, and some pink mixed in as well. It's just gorgeous.
Okay.
My explanation does not do them justice.
No, yeah, I mean I've never considered myself a dice goblin. Like I have a couple of sets of dice and I've been gifted some or uh procured some before, but like I probably have less than 20 dice total, 30 dice total, and
Oh, we'll
it
fix
is
that.
no, fix that. It astounds me though because there are people who have traditions or philosophies or superstitions when it comes to dice, and they're very people really love character specific dice. People
Hmm.
really love just collection dice that they like because they were pretty for one reason or another.
Hmm.
What superstitions do you hold when it comes to dice? Whether you're as a player or as a creator or anything like that? Like what kind of superstitions do you have? Do you have a dice jail, for example, or
I do not.
do you believe they need to be warmed up before you actually start rolling in a game?
um, I don't have a dice jail, shockingly, because I will take them out and put them aside, but I don't actually have something to put them in. Um, I I will say I smudge mine.
Okay. Yeah, get some of the bad energy out of them and
Yep.
try and cleanse them as best as possible.
Yep. I do that for all the sets that I make and send out. I do that for sets that I've collected because yes, I do collect. I don't specifically have sets for certain characters only. I just pick a set that I think works well with that character,
Okay.
and I
So it
have a
represents
large.
the character, whether in the color or the make or the
Yeah.
style or the font used for the numbering or anything like that.
Yep.
What is a pitfall that being a dice maker you try to avoid or that you could fall into potentially in the process of making dice?
Um, I fall into it a lot. Actually, I am my own worst critic,
Okay.
and I will think they didn't come out how the customer wants because they didn't come out how I was envisioning them.
Yeah.
It's actually happened with some of Naber's dice. I've repoured them so many times because I'm actually working on two sets for them currently. Um, and it hasn't come out how I want. So I'll report them until they come out how I think the character customer wants.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Like the you do have a very artist's eye. Like I could tell with the set that I was lucky enough to possess briefly, only briefly. It
Won't
hurts my
make you
soul.
one.
I know, but they were so great. I can tell that there is that perfection to it because it is a very temperamental process. I've learned,
Hmm.
like the way it's poured, how long it's cooked or pressurized, or I don't know the official terminology, but like
Curing.
there are so many potentials for it to go wrong. And I know that most of our dice makers have a tub or a bucket or something of all of the misprints or all of the things that they didn't feel like were up to snuff.
Yeah.
So I know there's got to be a lot of laser focus and a very discerning eye if you're going to create a product that you're going to put your name on or that you're going to really take pride in. What what is probably the most difficult part of it? Because you say the pouring doesn't take very long, but that I feel like has the most potential for user error. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if the colors won't come out right or it won't set correctly or whatever the case is. I mean, once it's in the pot, anything that happens at that point isn't anything that you can account for. Like
Yeah.
something can go wrong that's out of your control. But with what's in your control, what's the biggest potential for problems? What's the most difficult part of it?
Um, I would say it depends on the set and what they want in it. Because I mean, there's a lot of things you can use as inclusions, and that can throw off the weight of the dice. It can throw off the color scheme. Um, for example, a set that I'm making, a VTM set I'm making actually, is supposed to be rainbow, translucent, with black holographic glitter. So if you use too much glitter, like I happen to use too much black glitter, it turned the dice completely black except for on the outer edges.
Okay.
And you can really only see it if you shine a flashlight under the die. So I would say that would be the most difficult
Okay.
or frustrating.
Right.
Um,
Who are some of your biggest influences? Who, like, are there any creators that you follow specifically, or anybody whose work that you follow specifically that you find, inspiring or fascinating, or that you're almost like attempting to you that you draw influence from?
Absolutely. Have you heard of Dispel Dice?
I have not. I'm gonna have to
No.
check that out.
Oh, I found them a long time ago, and their dice are just gorgeous.
Right.
Um, so that's, I would say, one of my biggest inspirations.
Okay. Okay.
They are certainly where I would like to get to.
And what is it that they do specifically that calls to you? Is there a certain type of dice that they make, or a certain strategy or technique that they use that really blows your mind?
They have this, I don't know how they do it, but they have this really amazing wispy color scheme, not color scheme, but flow
Okay.
in their dice. It's like they're being poured, but they're completely cured. It's like the colors are moving around and there's no liquid core or anything in it.
Yeah.
That's just how they look. Um, so that's where I've wanted to be.
Right. And dice making is like an ever evolving industry. I mean, I've
It is.
seen such incredible things. I remember when I first started TTRPGs way back again, an era ago.
And
Um,
Erica.
it felt like an era ago. I only knew about like Chessex dice, or dice
Mhm.
that you would get from like a tabletop game, like a Monopoly dice or anything like that. I didn't realize just how advanced and intricate it could get. I just assumed there were machines out there that made them. They put them in the box. Like, I didn't realize that it was something that could become an art form, and it really has become an art form since. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many interesting and unique things people can do. I've seen people put like little skulls in their dice in the middle of them, or and they'll take things from nature like
Oh,
plants or
absolutely.
like flowers and put them in dice, and it just seems to be continuously growing and evolving. And now you can put like unique patterns on the different number faces or use different fonts. Is there a specific like thing that you want to be able to do that you've seen other people do, and how would you even begin to go about experimenting with that?
Um, I would say something I'm not entirely good at is the wispy or the veins. Like
Okay.
I'm not good at either of those. I'm really good at suspending color in a translucent dye.
Right.
That's something for some reason that I've always been good at. Um, but I would like to emulate some of the veining ones that I've found. Um, I don't know who makes it, but I found one on Reddit that is just, I don't even know how to explain it, but
How does that process even work? Because to me, it's like baking. Like, you put it all in a bowl, you mix up the color until you get the color you want, and then you pour it in the pan, you close the pot or the oven or whatever the hell it is, and it cooks, and then it's done. like when it comes to the small things like the veining, or putting things in the center, or the way people can make the colors swirl, do you have to like sit there with an eyedropper over the pot? Like, how does this work? It's still just completely mind-blowing to me.
It does involve a lot of luck, um, but you do get better with it as you do it, as you progress. Um, I used to only do solid color, and that was it.
Right.
And it's it takes a lot to get it how you want it, but it's worth it.
Right.
Especially if you're doing a dirty pour. Like they have silicone cups that have up to 5 or 6 chambers for different colored resin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and
Um,
there's so many other skills that this calls upon too, like
mhm.
chemistry and like having a fine eye for color and artistry and like timing and all of that. These are all skills that I feel like have to be learned through trial and error, but also it being an expensive hobby, you don't really want to have a lot of waste. How how did you find that learning process? Was there a lot of trial and error, or was it just kind of one of those you tried to be more precise and precise each time? Like, what was it like?
There was some trial and error. I have a full jar of just failures. Um, but I actually try to incorporate those into new sets. So
Okay.
I reuse the flashing, the failures. I try not to make a lot of waste.
Right.
Um, but yeah, no, definitely a lot of trial and error. Trying to be more precise as well, like at the same time. Because yeah, no, it's not something that will degrade.
Okay.
So there's a lot of discussion
Right.
on whether it's something that people should be doing or not. So I try to be one of the ones that doesn't make a lot of waste. So yeah, trying to be more precise.
Well, I also like that you will find a use for the things that you might have considered to be failures before. You'll
Mhm.
find ways to incorporate them because, we are in a world where we're trying to be more mindful of the imprint or the print we put on the
Yep.
world and trying not to just create more trash upon trash. So I do like that you can look at something and say, maybe this wasn't what was intended for this particular set, but that you'll hold on to it. And if there is another opportunity to bring it back in or to use it, maybe it does fit with a different set more than the original set. I
Mhm.
find that just so mindful and so thoughtful as far as how to make sure that the waste is decreased as best as possible. I know that there are some things that you can't prevent, like if it's
Yeah.
not going to come out as a functional die, that's something that you can't have. But as far as like just the small little touches, like I think so much art comes from mistakes, things that weren't
Yeah.
intended. And especially in the dice creating field, it seems like that would be an unintended benefit or reward that can be reaped through the process. Now, I know that there's a difference between your typical polyhedral D&D set and your VTM or World of Darkness set. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, World of Darkness is just all D10s. It's one
Yeah.
set of dice, whereas in the polyhedral, you've got so many more combinations and
Yeah.
possibilities. Which one do you enjoy making more? A World of Darkness set or a polyhedral set?
I would say the World of Darkness set because
Really?
yes, there. Yep, yeah, there are more of them. Because I make 15. Um, but it's it comes down to the sanding and polishing for me
Right.
because there's, I mean, obviously the D12, the D20, the D4. Um, Absolute nightmare to sand. Even worse to polish. But with the D10s, it's just one die repeatedly.
Right, you kind of get into a rhythm and it
Yeah.
almost becomes mechanical the way you're doing it because you know exactly what you're going to get every single time. Whereas
Hmm.
that randomity of change and more, faces or less faces, a smaller die probably is a lot harder to grip and to get a good
Yeah.
hold on. Which is your least favorite dice to work with?
The least favorite, I have to say the D20.
Really? Is it just because
Yep.
of the multitude of faces and the extra
Yeah.
inking you have to do, or is it what is it about it?
Um, that one has the more it has more chances to roll as you're sanding it or slipping out of your hand. Um,
Yeah, there's like a lot more space to grab onto, but there's also a lot smaller surface
yeah.
areas to grab onto, so it seems like it would be a little bit more of a slippery die to hold on to.
And it's got a higher chance of you fucking it up.
Yeah, I could believe that. If you oversand one side, the whole thing's basically ruined.
Yep.
Like, there's no real good way to even it out or
Hmm.
to even be aware of the differences on the different sides.
Yeah, it's an experience,
Yeah.
and I have absolutely done that.
Would you ever try a D100? Because a D100 is absolutely a a marvel to behold in its existence, and the fact that it's basically a sphere with all of those little sides. Would you ever take the leap and do one of those?
So funny story.
Yeah.
I actually am. Yep.
Okay, you gotta expand that. That's not a story. That's just a statement. You have to tell me, how did this happen?
Well, one of my friends put in a request because they play D&D casually. It's not something that's taken over their life, which totally fine. I admire them for that because they have a lot going on. But yes, Tessa D100.
But that's not casual. Like a
um,
D100 is, there's nothing casual about it.
I know. So he asked if he could get a custom D100 done. I said sure. Um, I have full creative freedom on it. I can do absolutely whatever I want. So, me being me, I got to go, extra on it and make it galaxy with uh, liquid cores in it, like large and small.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. All right. So one of the big things that I've heard dice makers talk about, one of the things that, I constantly come back from is masters and molds.
Hmm.
What's the difference between the two and what's so important about that part of the process? Cuz like I know one of the things that might cause delays in the making is that you need new masters or that you
Yep.
need to create new molds or whatever the case is. What is that all about? What Explain that to me because I get the concept, but I don't
Mhm.
get like what that process is like.
Okay. So for masters, that is going to be the set that you make your molds from. I do it a bit differently. I will make I will have Matt make my masters for me. I'll have him print them. I will sand them and whatnot. But they have the font that I use. I don't think anyone else uses it.
No, it's a very
Um,
unique font. Having again had a set that I
yeah.
wish I still had. Um, I can't talk enough about that set. I really, it was so gorgeous. Anyway, so yeah, you do have a specific font that you use on
Yep.
the masters. Okay.
Yep. I also, for my polyhedrals, I have a fox as the 20 face. So, which that is a whole other nightmare to ink. But anyway, um,
A lot more detail, that's for sure.
oh yeah. But the way I do it is I will make a mold um, from clear silicone.
Okay.
which is like a 2-day process. Because you have to do the bottom or the body, and then you push it down. Because I use a 3D printed cuff, so it doesn't leak out. Because that's never fun.
No, I wouldn't imagine
And
it would be.
no, no. And then the next day you clean it up. Um, and I put petroleum jelly on the lid side so it doesn't fuse together, because I've also had that happen by mistake. I fucked up a few times. But after that's done, I will put uh, clear resin, just no design or anything to it. I will just pour a set and then make a new mold from those. And I will use those repeatedly. I can sand them how I want. I can give them either a mirror finish or a matte finish. I usually try to do a matte finish because it's less work.
Okay.
Um, because after you pull a set, if they want it matte, I've noticed a lot of people want it matte, which
Okay.
I didn't think they would. But I'm actually really glad they do, because thank you, Nabbers. Um, Nabbers is the one that always goes matte, and I appreciate it. It is less harsh on my hands because there are days where my hands are just cramping and numb from all of the sanding if I give them a mirror finish. Um, but it's my train of thought has left.
Sure. Well, I've got
Yeah.
another question. So the masters, this isn't just like a set of dice that you would use in a game. These are
No.
specifically for the purposes of dice crafting. So I imagine them to
Yes.
be a lot more dense, a lot more solid, a lot more, for the craft more than for typical day-to-day use. So it's not like I could just
Yeah.
grab a random set of dice and say these are the masters. Like you'd have to make them
Right.
specifically for the purposes. What materials are the masters usually made of? And it sounds like they can be 3D printed.
Yep.
But what's that process like? What do they make about them that is different from a typical set of dice?
Um, I mean, you could 3D print a typical set of dice. Um, there's not really much of a difference there, but for the masters, there's still work you have to do to them if you pick up a random set of dice and say this is it. I mean, it's not really it
Right.
for the masters, because you have to make sure they are perfect. You have to make sure there's no flaw, because if there is, every set that you make is going to have that same flaw.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. So you need them to be perfect. They need to be
Yeah.
printed out exactly how you want them, and make sure that all the imperfections, the lettering is exactly where you want it. Is that an in-depth process, or is there like a program that you use, or do you literally just have to like get into architecture mode of like designing it? Like, how does that whole thing work? Because I don't know
Um,
anything about 3D printing, so you're talking to someone completely out of date here. But like, do you have to get into a program and like align them exactly right on like a computer program before going through the printing process, or how does that all work?
yep. Matt actually prints mine. So I'm not the one to talk about that.
Well, it's nice to have it in house.
Yeah, yeah. I tried going out to other friends, and it was taking forever, like years. Um, so that was kind of why, you know what? Fuck it. We're just gonna get a 3D printer and make it ourselves.
Yeah, then that's, I mean, even 3D printers alone, and I know, again, I'm not going to make you answer this, but just the whole concept of like, you just have this
Yeah.
empty box, and then after a few days or hours, you have something physical in said box is is so unusual to me. It seems something like from out of a sci-fi movie, and the fact that they could do this is just so incredible to me. And I've watched TikToks and YouTube videos of the process of it happening, and these just it's wild. Uh,
It is.
but I assume there is definitely a fine touch to making sure that things are centered, that they're
Hmm.
exactly how you want them to be, that they're sized appropriately. And one of the things I admire most about this craft is that attention to detail. Like, you really do have to make sure the measurements are correct, that everything
Yep.
is exactly how you want it to be, and how it wants to be done. So explain what a pressure pot is. Because when I try to picture it in my head, I just assume it's like a crock pot. But I'm sure that's wrong
Yeah,
in
no.
so many ways. So what is a pressure pot? What does it look like? How does it function? How does it
Um,
work?
well, let's see if I can phrase this the right way.
You can. I
I've
believe in you. You got this.
I mean, I've never been asked to explain a pressure tank before.
I don't
Uh,
get it.
okay. Do you know what a paint tank is? Like,
The one that you put like the can of paint in and it shakes it really fast?
no, no.
Then no.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
putting you
Well
to the test
then,
today because I am big dummy brain.
um, so I don't know how to explain this.
All right, well let's take it back a step. What does it
Okay.
look like? What does a pressure pot look like? I've never seen one in person, which I should have. I was at your house.
Yeah, you
What
did
does
see
it
it.
Did I see it? I had no idea. So what does it actually look like in its shape?
Okay. So it's a. I don't know the actual height of it. For me, it's a decent sized cylinder
Okay.
that has locks on the top of it
Okay.
and a pressure nozzle on and words pressure nozzle and pressure gauge on the top,
Okay.
so you can gauge the pressure and whatnot. And I don't go above 40.
Okay.
But the tank is actually refurbished from um, a paint tank.
Sure.
But yes, it was the silver tank that was on the floor by the
Okay.
table.
Okay.
You've seen it, you just don't know you did.
I had no idea that's what it was. Like I would not know the difference. I know that one of the hazards of doing this is that you are working with toxic chemicals. Like, you are working with potentially problematic and toxic chemicals. How do you account for that, and what kind of, preventative measures do you take? Is there a certain safety thing you need to do? How does that work?
Well, I do make sure that the room I'm in is ventilated, so I will open a window or something, um, just so Cole doesn't yell at me, because I know she will. Yes, you use a mask.
Okay. Okay, and I assume gloves too, because you're
Yeah.
possibly, like, I've heard skin contact even is something that could be horrendously bad and dangerous.
Um, if it's hit that phase, yes. Shut up, Matt.
Yeah, I was gonna say Matt's calling you out by asking, do you actually use the mask or is it just nearby?
Occasionally. It is always nearby because I have like 4 of them,
Okay.
but I there are days where I don't use it. I will admit.
And obviously, I mean, you've been doing this enough time now that you probably have a good understanding. But for everybody out there who's going to venture into this world, use your mask. Allie is not your
Yeah.
role model.
Exactly.
Well, I do want to ask you more about the business end of it, but first I want to toss to the fact that we are doing a giveaway tonight, and it happens to be a dice giveaway. Now, unfortunately, these are not Fox's dice. You're going to have to bust out the wallets and the hard earned cash for that if you want something of high quality. But what I can tell you is these dice are well traveled. And tonight's set, one of many that we're going to be offering over the next several months, is from Gen Con. And it's a set of dice that I curated myself and put together for the use of players at Gen Con. They have only been used once, maybe, but we are giving them away for free tonight, and it is a set of blue and orange dice that can be used in any World of Darkness game. This is all you need. This set of dice that you see on screen is all you need to pick up and play any World of Darkness game. It's got your 10 standard dice, your 5 hunger or desperation or rage dice, and it would be a perfect addition to your collection. I'm offering them away for free tonight. All you have to do is put the hashtag DiceMePLZ in the chat and you will be in the running, and I will give away those dice at the end of the night. But these could be yours. All you have to do is put yourself in the running with the hashtag DiceMePlease. So taking a hobby and making it into a profession, that is a very confident and bold move to make. It takes a lot of courage, and I mean that in the best possible way. Having created my own business that I ran for 10 years, I know that there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of stress, there's a
Absolutely.
lot of pressure that goes into it. How do I price it appropriately? Is my stuff even worth selling? What gave you where did you find the confidence to do it? And I don't mean that as a criticism. I mean that really in the highest of possible praise, because again, I've held your dice. They're incredible. They're definitely worth money. Like they have so much value. uh what 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 were the steps like becoming a business owner? When did you decide to make that decision? When did you decide to take that step? And what was it like, especially the first few listings you made, the first few sales you made? Like what was that experience like for you?
Uh, it was certainly intriguing. It was definitely an experience. The first couple sets that I sold, I priced at like $10
Yeah.
because I just didn't have that confidence. Looking back, they were good quality, not as not what I put out now, but I also have better things to work with now. Um, but finding the confidence was a lot. And there are times where I still don't think of that. You know, I don't have it. I don't have what it takes to sell this stuff. Like it's not worth it. I'm proven wrong. I can tell by the look on your face you're gonna yell at me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But continue.
um, but it's the reassurance from the ones that have bought the dice, from the people that are in my life that you know have been there since I started and just keep pushing me forward. They're what uh, give me the confidence, the boost I need to continue.
Well, one of the things I've noticed, or at least heard about the dice creating community, is that it's a very supportive environment. Everybody wants to see everyone else do really well. I've spoken with Wolfpack Dice, I've spoken with
Mhm.
many other dice makers, and they say that there is this morale, this camaraderie amongst the environment as a whole. And I think that rings true to the TTRPG environment as a whole. Like, yes, it's a business, and yes, there's got to be a bit of competition there, but I think everybody wants to see everybody do well. And I think that
Yeah.
really speaks to the type of people that get into this racket, that get into this thing, is that they are artists at their core, and it's not necessarily about how much money they can make or anything like that, but it's about just sharing the love of this craft, the love of this product. Have you noticed that to be the case in your research and in your kind of time in the community? Have you found it to be very supportive? Do you exchange ideas with everyone? I know, again, being an introvert, probably not as much as others do, but like, do have you found that to be the overall case, that it is a very positive and welcoming community? And what's your experience been with that?
From my experience, yes, I haven't dipped my toes in um as a very like extensively. Um, but I occasionally will ask for advice or um give ideas out to either people that are starting out or people that have done this way longer than I have. But yeah, it's a very comforting environment
Good.
despite having that. I wouldn't really say uh, competitiveness. Yes, we all want to succeed, but we also want all of us to,
Yeah, it kind of
have,
raises everybody
yeah.
up. It's not about, beating someone out. You want everyone to succeed. And I think that, especially in dice making, that makes sense because there's always a market for it. There's enough dice
Mhm.
goblins out there to support everyone. They're going to want everyone's styles. They're going to want multiple styles of that everyone. And I think that that collector mindset, or, dragon horde mindset, when it comes to dice, probably helps in encouraging that community. You're only going to buy one core book from, one game or from several games. It's not like that's not the case with dice. You'll see people who want character specific dice, or
Mhm.
want various different makes and molds and models of dice. There are various different fonts of dice. So I feel like there's got to be a lot more opportunities in the
Yeah.
dice making community, which helps kind of keep that competitiveness at bay. If there was a dice maker that you wanted to be the most like, if there was one that if you had the opportunity to kind of sit at the feet of them and listen to them or watch their process more closely, who would it be?
Um, there would be a few. Top of the list again, Dispel Dice, just because I want to learn how they do it.
I'm sure there's some
Um,
trade secrets that they can't share, but that,
oh, probably.
yeah. Are there any other dice makers that you are like inspired by, or that you're fond of, or that like to watch their craft?
Yes, Pixel Raptor. She is amazing. She does a lot of glitter,
Okay.
much more than I will ever do, but they come out so well. Um, there's vibrancy in the color. You can clearly tell what's in the dice. You can clearly tell the shape of the glitter because she will use more than just one.
Okay. All right. If someone was trying to get started in dice making, if they saw this video and was like, "That sounds so cool, I want to get into it," what are some maybe tips that would you would give them? What are some of the materials? What are the basic level that they would need to get started? And what are they looking at realistically in terms of investment? Because there are those
Oh,
who want to go full bore, that get all of the different colors
oh,
and all of the different inks. But if they were just starting out, if this was something they wanted to dip their toes in, what would they need? What would you advise them? And how much approximately do you think it would cost?
oh. I'm not good with numbers, so I can't give approximates.
Well, at least give me a shopping list for
Oh
people
yeah,
who'd want
yeah.
to get started.
Um, Word of advice would be definitely don't give up because there's like no matter what you do, even if you've done this forever, you're still gonna have trial and error. But you're gonna want gloves. That will be a lifesaver. Silicone mats because you will spill. You will. There is no doubt about it.
Yeah, you're gonna make a
Obvious.
mess whether you like it or not.
Yeah, yeah. You have no choice. Um, it is not a very clean or non-messy hobby.
Okay.
But inks, mica powder, uh, any inclusions you want. I wouldn't suggest starting off with inclusions, but I mean, to each their own. Go have fun. Really, just go experiment. Um, mixing cups. I recommend a food scale
Okay. And why is that?
to weigh out the resin.
Okay.
Some is by volume, others are by weight. I use a 1-to-1 ratio, and I usually always do it by weight.
Okay.
Um, Obviously, the resin, the silicone, if you're going to make your own molds, which usually is a must unless you're going to buy them from other creators, but that's very expensive, like upwards of 100 or more. Yeah, I didn't go that route. Um, Definitely a pressure pot.
Okay.
Definitely, because if you don't, you're going to have surface bubbles,
Okay.
or you're going to have bubbles in the dice themselves that you just can't get rid of.
And that's going to lead to a lot of scrap and a lot of excess. Okay. All
Yep.
right. So I want to transition now from the dice making to your current game because you're in a game called Amateur Hour, and
Yes.
rumor has it that one day this game will come to stream. So I want to talk a little bit about Adelaide. I want to talk about the game, and I want to kind of give people a taste or a sneak preview of what's to come with Amateur Hour. Because anybody who's been following TikTok has checked out the Tampa Bay Terrors
Yep.
TikTok, as well as the TikToks featured on our website, knows that there's a bit of an interesting story going on here, that there's a potentially masquerade threatening risk that is out there. So, first, let's start off with Adelaide. Adelaide is Malkavian. What else can you tell us about her?
She is the youngest out of the group, which was not intentional.
It's worked out that way.
Yep. Yeah. She's only 7 in kindred years. So she's still very much a baby, but she's very independent. Um, she's a street racer, but also a mechanic, so she does all the work herself. She can get a bit paranoid. She's had one episode so far. She hasn't really caused any issues, and now that I say that, it's going to
It's
happen.
gonna
I know it.
happen. You just doomed yourself. Absolutely. It's coming now.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, Calf will enjoy it, so it's fine.
Absolutely. And for those who don't know, Kath is one of our storytellers. She's also been a previous guest on the show here, Caffeinatrix. She's also one of my longest term friends that I've known in real life for forever. And I know that she tells a very, very good story. But what can you tell me about the coterie as a whole? Because you've got a very interesting kind of mix of individuals in this coterie.
Yeah. We definitely we're a special little group.
And it's a group of anarchs. It's an anarch coterie. And you've got a very interesting combination. But give me your perspective, maybe as a player or even a little bit as a character, as to the other members of the coterie.
Well, there is Frank, whose mask name is Mr. Roger.
But his real name is Frank N. Stein for
Yep.
everyone out there. So, you know.
Yep. He is our gangrel, and he is very uh strength based. The
Okay.
very
Rough and tumble.
yeah, he is something. Uh he's knowledge hungry is for him is something else entirely. Um Frank is not a sweet bean, no matter what you say, Matt.
And of course, Frank is portrayed by our beloved Fangless Wolf, also known as Matt, the Matt that has been mentioned many times on the show and has also been dropping truth bombs in the chat this whole time.
Yeah, it's rude. Um, but he is ironically the one that comes up with the better ideas, and none of us listen to him.
It's a mistake.
It is. But he used to be a what was it, a forest ranger? Um, and he's not that great with technology. Like he broke a phone trying to Google the size of an elephant brain.
Okay. Okay.
And then frenzied because of it. Yeah. Yeah, it's an experience. Then there's Ripley, who's a Tremere, who from Adelaide's point of view has become the group's therapist.
Interesting. Okay.
Really, he's just getting dirt on all of us,
Sure. Yeah,
as
to
a Tremere
inevitably screw
does.
you over. Yeah.
Yeah. um, and then there is Tori, who is Ravnos, who is the newest member in our group, and we don't actually know much about her.
Okay. So just slowly being introduced and rolled
Yep.
out. Now, one of the things about this story that I find very interesting is that you happened upon this podcast that's been airing that has been starting to reveal truths and secrets that shouldn't necessarily be known as
Yes.
widely as they are. What is it about this story that appeals to you, and are there any interesting moments that have happened so far that you can discuss, or like what's your favorite moment that's happened in the game so far?
Um, my favorite moment's one of a personal one for Adelaide. It was a hunting scene. She was trying to hunt down a residence. I forgot which one it was, but she was hunting down a residence, ended up paying for this woman's gas because, gas prices awful. So while paying it forward, she's also taking what she needs, and then cloud memory and getting rid of the evidence and whatnot. Um, but that was my favorite moment because it was just something that most people wouldn't think would be a favorite or something that was extremely impressionable.
Sure.
But we almost got shot twice in the first night.
Good, good. Great
Oh
start.
yeah. Oh, it's been an interesting interesting thing trying to hunt this podcast crew down. Um,
Well, especially for a group that isn't necessarily the most technologically savvy.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that is the best part I've found about these kinds of stories is the struggle. Like I think that in a lot of games, especially D&D or other adventure games, people are all about their strengths, winning, overcoming these odds, or being the best at something. Whereas I think
Mhm.
that in World of Darkness, especially Vampire the Masquerade, the struggle is what makes the game fun, is trying to find ways to overcome odds when they're dead set against you, and like really leaning into the flaws of a group. So I think it is a
Yeah.
very cool opportunity that this story's focus primarily seems to be on one of the weaker points of the characters and how they're going to overcome that or how they're going to get around that. And I think that's just a super, super cool part of it all. And I think it's going to be a really big, fun adventure for people to watch and to see the frustrations that come out of situations like that.
Oh yeah.
Now, I want to talk about, as our last topic, the world of darkness in general. Obviously,
Mhm.
the world is a lot bigger than a lot of other games are. It's not just limited to Vampire the Masquerade. Have you had an opportunity, or do you have any interest in exploring some of the other splats, like Hunter the Reckoning, like Werewolf the Apocalypse? Because it does tend to become like quicksand that once you get a
Mhm.
taste of it, you start to sink and everything else pulls you in. Is there anything that appeals to you about any of the other splats or settings?
Um, Yeah, I am interested in hunter, werewolf as well. I think I would jump into werewolf first.
Okay.
Uh, I haven't read much on the fifth edition of werewolf, but I was in a game where I got to play Foxkin or a
Oh, nice.
Kitsune.
Yep.
Yes, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah,
So I would definitely hop into werewolf.
it's got a different pacing, and it's interesting because it having just been released, it's still obviously growing and evolving, at least in the fifth edition. But there's a lot of great old resources and material. There's a lot of lore in World of Darkness too, and I don't know how much you really enjoy engaging with the lore, but I assume as somebody who likes to read, that there are some things that appeal to you. Is there a particular piece of lore that you found yourself especially drawn to or attracted to that you ended up wanting to look more into?
Um, I've actually wanted to look more into a lot of the lore, like the Zemitzi lore, because that. I mean, I even asked you the um first iteration if I could play as Zemitzi. You told me no. I understand.
That is a very deep end of the
Yeah,
pool to jump
yeah,
into for a first time. But yeah, the Zamitzi have a very interesting and horrifying, complicated
yeah.
history of all the horror in the Vampire the Masquerade setting. I think that is the far end
Yeah.
of it all. But I do think that it is fascinating and it is very complex. And I would be
Hmm.
very interested to see your take and your exploration of the Zamitzi because I think it can go a lot of ways, but it's unique for
Yeah.
everyone. It's a journey for everyone, and
Yeah.
that's a very cool thing. So I have some lightning round questions that I'm going to
Okay.
ask you to put a bow on this. But my last question before we get to that is, where do you think the world of darkness is heading? You have helped as a moderator and a staffer for quite some time now. You've seen kind of the release of materials. You've seen what we've had to process and is coming down the pipeline. Where do you think the world of darkness is headed from here? What do you think is going to be the next major release? Is there anything that you've heard or has been announced that you're excited for, or excited to learn more about? Let's just talk about that in general.
Um, I'm still learning a lot about World of Darkness, so there are going to be people who are much more experienced than I am when it comes to this. Uh, but from what I know of it, I like where it's going. I'm interested in uh, the release of Gehenna War.
Gehenna War, yeah. Yeah, it's going to connect a lot of dots from where the
Yeah.
older editions left off and where the new edition is now. And I'm hoping it's going to fill in some of the gaps in the lore and
Mhm.
give us a little bit more insight into what is either has gone
Yeah.
on or is going on in the current setting that they've only really alluded to. And hopefully it'll, put another chapter into some stories that have long been written. I mean, 33 years this game has existed, but it has lore dating back to the dawn of time. It's a
Yeah.
long story, but it's a really, really good story. Are there any splats or, settings within the world of darkness that you have absolutely no interest in exploring? Like, obviously, we've got mage, wraith,
Um,
changeling, demon, mummy, Promethean. Like, there's all of these different takes on the world of darkness. Are any of those that you look at it and you're just like, yeah, that's not for me? Or do you think you would dip your toes in all of those different pools?
um, I would try most of them. I'm not sure about Mummy. That's not my thing.
Yeah, it was a choice to say the very least. But yeah, so you think you try Mage when it comes out, or
I
Wraith if they
think so.
release a fifth edition update? Okay, okay. Is there a horror element that maybe you'd love to see injected into the world of darkness that you either don't know about or that doesn't exist yet?
Oh, that's a hard question. I actually don't know.
Okay.
Right off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
Okay. Were you a fan of horror growing up, and are you a fan of horror still?
I am a fan of horror. Growing up, I wasn't really allowed to watch it because my mom doesn't like horror, so I would have to watch it on my own or not at all.
Right. So as an
So,
adult now, you're like, of course, bring it on. I want all the things that I couldn't do when I was a kid.
yeah. I still have to watch it alone because no one near me likes horror. So,
Well, okay, I'm going to do our dice giveaway here, and then I'm going to ask you our rapid fire questions. We'll put a bow on this, but you have been a fantastic guest. I know there was some apprehension going into this, but I think it's been amazing, and I really appreciate seeing the insight into the dice making, seeing your passion for this thing that I definitely, coerced you into doing, and the fact that you continue to love it to this day means the world to me because it is something that I've loved for 30 years, and seeing that love continue on beyond me means the world to me. But yes, we are having a dice giveaway tonight. And if you've been paying attention all night long, we've been looking for the hashtag Dice Me Please in the chat where you can win this traveled, seasoned set of dice that has only been used maybe once or twice, but it has been to Indianapolis and Gen Con and back. So if you want a little bit of the magic of Gen Con and a little bit of the magic of a table that I have run, these dice can be yours. And so, for those who have entered the hashtag all night long, tonight's winner is Double Magus. So,
wow.
congratulations to Double Magus. You have won the giveaway of tonight's set of dice, and I will be in contact with you immediately to get those shipped out to you as soon as possible. But congratulations to Magus. That set of dice is yours. So, my rapid fire questions for tonight.
Yes.
In your experience with Vampire the Masquerade, you have crossed paths with pretty much every clan. Maybe there's a couple that you haven't really encountered directly yet. What would you say, in your experience, is your favorite clan and why?
Oh, um, I would have to say Banu.
Banu, why?
Yes. I like the lore. I like the dynamics that they have. Um, I like that they're being opened up a bit more and not just being Middle Eastern. Because I like seeing the variety that they're coming out to now.
Yeah, it's created a lot more opportunities. It's become more culturally acceptable and not so stereotypical, but it also has created new, unique possibilities for character
Hmm.
creation as well as the directions they're going and the way they've broken up the clan into subsects and into more variety. I think has been a spice of it because a lot of the older clans in the original editions fell into stereotypes. Your Brujas were your
Hmm.
punks, your Banu Hakim were your assassins. Like it was very, very specific, but now they've opened up a
Yeah.
much more wide range of it. I think I know the answer to this based off of what you just said a few minutes ago. But what's a clan that you've always wanted to play but haven't had the opportunity to do so yet?
I mean, Zamisi's definitely one of them.
Yeah.
I would have to say Tremere.
Why?
Because Aurora was supposed to be Tremere, and I leaned away from that. But Tremere, the sciency aspect of it, not the culty aspect of it, but the science behind it kind of intrigues me.
Okay. Okay. The mix of science and magic and everything like that.
Yeah.
All right, that makes sense. What is the most overrated clan?
Oh, don't ask me that.
I'm asking you that. Everybody's got to get put on the hot seat for at least a second and has to make a statement they'll live to regret. What is the most overrated clan?
I would have to say Ventrue.
Why?
The stereotypical Ventrue is just an asshole.
Fair. That's a fair statement. Okay, okay. What is a clan you think you'd never play?
Um, Probably La Sombra.
Why? And don't say
The
it's
real
because they're a different take on Ventrue.
No, no. I mean a little bit, but the religious aspect of them.
Okay, so you don't really like that religious bent or that influence
No.
that religion has on that clan. Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. What about in terms of what would be the most out of the box character type for you?
Oh. Some sort of Bruja. I don't know if I could do that.
Well, you did guest star as Bloody Mary, and you did a
Well,
fantastic
yes,
job with
but
that.
she was already written for me. I didn't have to do anything.
I suppose that's fair. Well, Allie, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I always love our conversations, and I'm really glad that you had the courage to get on camera with me and have this conversation. But you did a fantastic
Yeah.
job. I am really, really a huge fan of you and the work you do. I want to remind everybody to go support Allie in all of her creative endeavors. First, we're starting with her TikTok, a fangless fox on TikTok. You can see that cosplay and all those videos that I was fangirling about earlier. There's so much incredible content on there, and we're really gonna push and pressure Allie into making some Adelaide content coming soon. But it is just a really, really good follow, a good watch. Allie is one of the friendliest and most accommodating people I
I
know, and I
try.
think that it's a worthwhile follow. And so I definitely encourage everyone to head over to tiktok.com/ at a fangless fox. It's a fun follow. Also, head on over to Ember Fox Dice big
Yes.
or foxdice.bigcartel.com. There's nothing currently listed, but I'm going to be pushing you to get
Yeah.
some listings up soon because I think that these dice are absolutely incredible. I really, really do think it is a worthwhile investment. It's worth the money. It's really, really reasonably priced. The quality is unquestionable. I'm going to be getting a set of my own soon. I really do think I need them because I miss those dice so much. And I need a set of my own. But yeah, go support Ember Fox Dice. There will be listings up there soon. And you can always commission a specific request. There is a great, easy to fill out form there where you can get in touch with her and start the process of having your own dice created for you because I think that is worth the investment. You're going to want a set of these in your collection, especially if you're a dice goblin out there. Get a set of her dice soon. Also, you can follow Ember Fox Dice Creations on TikTok.
Yes.
There are some videos up there, although I'm going to push you to make some more because I want to see
I
you
will, I
make
promise.
dice. I want to see it. But you can head over to tiktok.com/ at Ember Fox Dice Creations or yes, I think yes, Ember Fox Dice
Yep.
Creations to follow there and stay up to dice with everything that Allie is doing in the realm of dice making. But you have been a wonderful guest. I
I tried.
appreciate you so much for taking the time doing this tonight, and I look forward to our wild, crazy adventure
Yes.
continuing for a long time to come. And I do look forward to the debut of Amateur Hour. We do not have a date
I
on
know.
that yet, but we will get one. And as soon as it's available, you can check our schedule and check our social media. We'll be promoting the hell out of it so that everybody can tune in and check out the wild adventure that this coterie has been on. But thank you to Allie. I'm Kent. Go follow St. Pete by Night on all of our social media listed down below. And if you're interested in getting into the world of darkness or expanding your world of darkness, we do have a Discord where we offer one shots. We offer opportunities for people to get involved. It's discord.gg/St. Pete by Night. Come be a part of our community
Yes.
and
Come.
get into the game. But thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we will see you next week. Have a good evening, everyone. Good night.